Nas has always been two things at once, a poet of the streets and a businessman of the future. From the moment Illmatic dropped in 1994, he was hailed as one of the greatest lyricists hip-hop has ever seen. His storytelling, his imagery, his ability to turn the pain and pride of QueensBridge into art. It made him a legend before he was even 21 years old. But 3 decades later, what made Nas even more remarkable is not just his music, but the fact that he's quietly become one of the smartest investors in hip-hop history. Most rappers dream of platinum plaques. Nas has plenty of those, but he also dreamed of something more: ownership, equity, and long-term wealth. While some artists focused only on endorsement deals or short-lived businesses, Nas placed his bets on tech startups that grew into billion-dollar companies. His portfolio includes names like Ring, Coinbase, Lyft, Dropbox, and Robinhood. Today, Nas is as respected in Silicon Valley as he is in the studio. And that combination, a rap icon with real venture capital success, is something hip-hop has rarely seen before. In April 1994, Nas released Illmatic, his debut album, and it sold only about 60,000 copies in its first week, peaking at number 12 on the Billboard 200. Commercially, it wasn't a blockbuster at first, but critically, it was a revelation. Illmatic received a rare 5 mic rating in the Source magazine, something almost no debut album ever achieved. Songs like NY State of Mind, The World Is Yours, and Halftime weren't just rap tracks. They were slices of life in Queensbridge, delivered with cinematic detail. Nas wasn't chasing radio hits. He was writing poetry over beats from DJ Premier, Large Professor, Pete Rock, and Q-Tip. Over time, Illmatic became widely regarded as one of the greatest hip-hop albums ever made. In 2021, the Library of Congress added it to the National Recording Registry, cementing its place in history. The lesson from Illmatic was simple. Nas built his career on credibility. Even when the sales weren't huge, the respect was there, and that credibility became the foundation for everything that came later, in music and in business. Nas didn't stop with Illmatic. His second album, It Was Written, dropped in 1996 and sold 270,000 copies in its first week, debuting at number 1 on the Billboard 200. It introduced a more polished Nas, collaborating with Lauryn Hill on If I Ruled the World. Imagine that. The album went double platinum, proving he could balance artistry with commercial success. The late 90s and the early 2000s were turbulent. His feud with Jay-Z produced one of the most iconic diss tracks ever, Ether. That battle kept Nas relevant during an era when many thought Jay had taken over New York. Nas survived, and the rivalry elevated his cultural presence. Albums like Stillmatic in 2001, Godson in 2002, and Hip Hop Is Dead in 2006 kept him in the conversation. And decades later, he was still racking up wins. In 2021, Nas won his first ever Grammy for Best Rap Album with Kings Disease. Think about that. Nearly 30 years after Illmatic, Nas was still producing work that earned the industry's highest recognition. Longevity like that is rare in hip-hop. But while his music career was thriving, Nas was building something even more powerful behind the scenes. In 2014, Nas co-founded QueensBridge Venture Partners, named after his childhood neighborhood. The firm specialized in early-stage investments in technology startups. That meant that they weren't waiting until companies were already famous. They were writing checks when the companies were small, risky, and unproven. Those are the bets that can pay off big. One of the earliest and most famous wins was Ring, the smart doorbell company. QueensBridge invested before most people even knew what Ring was. In 2018, Amazon acquired Ring for over $1 billion. Nas's reported return was in the tens of millions. For context, that single deal could have been more profitable than years of music sales. Another monster win came from Coinbase, the cryptocurrency exchange. Nas invested early, when Coinbase was still a startup trying to make Bitcoin mainstream. In 2021, when Coinbase went public at the valuation close to $100 billion, Nas's stake was estimated to be worth $40 million or more. Even if crypto markets have cooled since then, that IPO put Nas on the map in Silicon Valley as someone who knew how to spot winners. And those weren't isolated cases. QueensBridge invested in over 100 companies, including Lyft, the ride-sharing company that went public in 2019 at a valuation of $24 billion. Dropbox, which IPO'd in 2018, valued at $8 billion. Robinhood, the trading app that IPO'd in 2021 at $32 billion. SeatGeek, the ticketing platform that's grown into a billion-dollar brand. Pluto TV, a free streaming service acquired by Viacom for $340 million. Genius, the lyrics platform that became a staple of hip-hop culture. Most artists brag about endorsements, Nas took ownership. By holding equity in startups, he didn't just get paid once, he participated in the growth of the companies themselves. When they went public or got acquired, he cashed in like a true investor. A lot of rappers have tried to break into business, but few have succeeded at this level. Nas's success comes down to three things. First, he partnered with the right people. QueensBridge Venture Partners was staffed with real venture capital professionals. They sourced deals, evaluated startups, and structured investments. Nas didn't try to reinvent the wheel. He aligned himself with experts. Second, he invested early. The big returns in venture capital don't come from waiting until a company is famous. They come from backing it when it's still unproven. Ring, Coinbase, Pluto TV, all of these were risky early bets that paid off huge. Third, Nas stayed quiet. Unlike celebrities who make a show of every business move, Nas let the results speak. By the time Amazon bought Ring or Coinbase IPO'd, Nas didn't need to hype it. The financial headlines told the story for him. This strategy put him in a different league. He wasn't chasing short-term endorsement deals. He was building long-term wealth. And in hip-hop, where artists often burn through fortunes, that discipline is rare. Nas didn't just rely on other people's companies. He also built his own. In 2013, he co-founded Mass Appeal, a media and record company. Mass Appeal Records signed artists like Dave East, Run the Jewels, and DJ Shadow. Beyond Mix, Mass Appeal Media produced documentaries including Wu-Tang, Of Mics and Men, and Rapture on Netflix. By expanding into media, Nas wasn't just an artist. He was becoming a storyteller and a brand builder. Mass Appeal also launched a partnership with Universal Music Group in 2023, strengthening its position as a label and media house. It's not a billion-dollar venture like Ring or Coinbase, but it showed Nas's ability to build and scale his own platform. Even with all of his business success, Nas never walked away from music. He released the Kings Disease trilogy with Hit Boy, earning his first Grammy and reintroducing himself to a new generation of fans. In 2025, he teamed up with DJ Premier for a collaborative project, proving that at 51 years old, he's still capable of sharp, relevant music. For an artist whose career began in the early 90s, that kind of longevity is almost unheard of. While some rappers fade into legacy status, Nas is both a legacy act and a current voice. That dual presence, still making respected music while holding millions in venture capital, makes his story unique. Today, Nas' estimated net worth is often listed at around $70 million, but that number may actually undersell him. Venture capital holdings are difficult to measure, and if even a fraction of his portfolio companies succeed, his real wealth could be much higher. Remember, Coinbase alone reportedly gave him a $40 million payday, and in Amazon's $1 billion acquisition of Ring and other exits like Pluto TV, and you'll see why Nas is in a league of his own. What makes Nas so impressive is the balance. On one hand, he's the lyrical genius behind Illmatic, Stillmatic, and Kings Disease. On the other hand, he's an investor with stakes in companies that define the modern economy. Few rappers or artists of any kind have pulled that off. From the streets of Queensbridge to the boardrooms of Silicon Valley, Nas has proven that hip-hop can produce more than just stars. It can produce moguls. His blueprint is clear. Build credibility, stay authentic, partner with experts, invest early, and let the results speak. Nas isn't the richest rapper alive. He's not the flashiest either, but he might be the most balanced, respected in music, respected in business, and respected by fans who've watched him grow for 3 decades. The question now is whether other rappers will follow his path. Will we see more artists take real stakes in the company shaping the future, or is Nas truly one of a kind?